This is the best looking couple in all of Wilmington, Sara and Josh. They are serial entrepreneurs. They had a company called UTIs. If you remember George Taylor and his successful company, Next Glass or Untapped, when he presented True Colors, they did a lot of work with George in the early days and were very active in my events, even at UNCW, and still attend today. Sara recently won a Wilma Award, which is from the Business Journal of Wilmington, and she is now a finalist in the healthcare space as well. So she has a very important product for women, and I think we all need to pay attention, and welcome Sara and Josh.
Hello everyone, my name is Sara. I am the founder of Dmanna, and I'm here today not to talk to you about a company, but to talk to you about a mission. A mission that, should we be successful in it, will change millions and millions of lives. The mission I'm talking with you today about is urinary tract infection prevention, and it started as a personal mission. This is a picture of me lying on a dirty bathroom floor of an Airbnb on a work trip, suffering from what I think is my 25th UTI. Started off as a personal mission to solve my own UTI problem. And if you've never had a UTI, if you're a man, you probably never have. 80% of women have had a UTI, though. It feels a little bit like this. A UTI is an infection of the urinary tract. It's very painful. There's a lot of burning, and there can be significant health consequences to these infections. And until I started trying to solve this problem for myself, I never realized how widespread the problem truly was. This is a picture of my family at Thanksgiving. My grandpa and my niece Layla in the back there. She, after surviving cancer as an infant, was brought back to the hospital 5 and 6 years old, dealing with recurrent urinary tract infections. And of course, me 10 years ago when I started to deal with these infections. And then a picture of my grandpa, Bucky. You guys know the Avengers, Bucky the Winter Soldier. Well, like that Bucky, my Bucky was a badass. He's a veteran, he loves his family, but he suffered with chronic UTIs until the day he died. And had the girl in that picture known what I know today about UTI prevention, we could have significantly reduced the amount of suffering he endured in his last years through preventing these infections. So it's a big problem for women, these infections. 80% of women will get a UTI at some point in their life. But generally, a healthy woman like me getting a UTI is not going to die from this infection. We can't say the same for elders like my grandpa Bucky. As many as 1 in 3 elders, men and women, contract them at the same rate after 60. Does not discriminate based on gender after age 60. 1 in 3 elders will pass away as a result of the UTI that they get. Huge problem for elders, and this problem is being compounded by our antibiotic resistance problem. UTIs are becoming so resistant. In fact, the first superbug ever found in the United States was found in a woman with a UTI. It was so severe that the CDC was called in and commented on that UTI, saying, we may be in a situation where we have patients in our intensive care units or patients getting urinary tract infections for which we do not have antibiotics. So the problem is that we have a lot of UTIs, 250 million people getting UTIs, and we're running out of antibiotics to treat them with. This is a huge problem, but a lot of smart people have worked this problem. They've looked into the science, and they've said, the way we solve this problem is we prevent these infections. Otherwise, we're going to run out of antibiotics faster than we can come up with them. Bill Gates commented on the AIDS crisis. He said it well when he said, treatment without prevention is simply unsustainable. So we went to work trying to find a prevention solution for myself and for other UTI sufferers like me. Turns out there's a lot of science that's already gone into this, and they've studied a supplement called Dmanna that's been shown in 3 clinical studies to prevent UTIs better than daily antibiotics in some cases. In fact, one study they found when they compared Dmanna, a natural supplement like vitamin C, they compared Dmanna to daily antibiotics and found that people who got urinary tract infections, people taking Dmanna every day, got on average 1 infection per year. People taking daily antibiotics, which have harsh side effects, which compound the problem of antibiotic resistance, those people got 6 UTIs a year. Now they also compared taking Dmanna to taking nothing and found that people taking Dmanna only had 4% recurrent UTIs, where people doing nothing would get another UTI in 33% of cases. So it's been proven out, but the market just hasn't responded yet. So we brought a product to market to help people use Dmanna to prevent their UTIs. And it's a simple packet, just like your Crystal Light. You mix it in your drink. 2 grams of this Dmanna powder every day can prevent up to 85% of UTIs. Now, this is significant for our elders who are always at risk for chronic UTIs, for women like myself suffering from chronic and debilitating UTIs. And there's a huge market for this problem. We've got 1% of Americans buying cranberry pills every year in a futile attempt to try and prevent their urinary tract infections. Now, cranberry pills have never been shown to prevent urinary tract infections. If you think they have, it's junk science, it's biased, it's probably funded by Ocean Spray. And yet 1% of people, no joke, 1% of people buy these pills every single year. And in 10 to 15 years, that percentage of people is going to be buying Dmanna's products. The science is going to catch up with the market, and we want to lead the way to make that happen. So to highlight another problem with the market and where our opportunity is, this is a competitor cranberry pill. This is an ad that I got served in my Facebook newsfeed. After going through creative revisions, a final review, someone put ad budget behind this to show me this feed where they called my life-threatening infections. I only have so many antibiotics it's going to work for me. My life-threatening infection, they called it sexy. And that's how they're advertising to people dealing with these UTIs. They don't get it. We also have a few other opportunities in that this product, unlike cranberry pills, have been proven in clinical trials. The urologist recommended. It performs better than daily antibiotics, which is crazy. And it can be sold at an affordable price point, not just here in America, but in every country in the world. So we started selling this product in July. We've got 100 customers so far. We've got 500 beta tasters who are demoing our product and giving us feedback. We're getting an average of 3 orders online per day, and we've got 7,000 hits to the website just from people organically coming, no paid. They just want to read our UTI content. But we also realize that people are not always going to go to the internet, especially our elders. They're going to do what their doctor tells them to do. So we've signed up 6 urology practices who are currently recommending Dmanna to their patients. And when we go and we pitch these urology practices on why they should recommend Dmanna, they're ecstatic because they say, well, we're already recommending Dmanna, I just never had a brand to recommend before now. So these are the people behind the strategy, behind this team. We've got myself, chemistry background, and my co-founder, Josh Harcus, who has written a best-selling book on sales and marketing. We've got Tom Eggleston, who took Amway public in China. He's helping us broker a deal right now, a partnership with the largest feminine hygiene brand in India, who when they saw our press release of our product launch, they messaged us, they said, we need this product in India. We've got 150 million women in India. Millions of them are suffering from UTIs. We need this product here. Also got Rob Rickard, our CFO of all of our other companies that Josh and I have started. And we've got Dr. Dieter, who until Hurricane Florence hit was helping us initiate pilot studies with elder care facilities where we could find out how effective it could be for these facilities, how significant it could be. But with Hurricane Florence, we had to put a pause on all those. A lot of those facilities got flooded, a lot of those elders got displaced. So that leads me into our first ask. We're looking for people to help us initiate pilot studies with elder care facilities, 3 to 5 facilities within the next 6 months. We can prove out how significant of an impact this product can have on the UTI rates in those facilities. So we're looking to talk to the decision makers, the facility owners, the doctors, and specifically anyone with a connection to the VA nursing homes. They have a huge problem with UTIs, and we think that this product can have a significant impact on that problem. We're also looking to get into retail, the health and wellness section, huge benefit there. And we're also looking for access to more practices, urology networks, geriatric networks, primary care networks, and urgent care networks. And lastly, we're looking to get Dmanna covered by insurance because this is a medically necessary product that is going to benefit so many people, and it needs to be covered by insurance. So if you know how to do that, if you can help us with that, we're looking to talk to you. You can email Josh, my co-founder, who I'm going to invite up here in a second. Email josh@dmanna.com if you're interested in helping us with any of these things. We would love to have you join us in this mission to change lives and prevent UTIs. Thank you. I'll bring Josh up and see what questions you have for us.
And feel free to shout it out while we wait for time.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, that was really awesome. 2 questions.
Number one is, you said it had a clinical trial. What are the implications of long-term use, especially does it become less effective over time? And then the other question is, what's the specific action that causes it to be effective?
Yes, so for my chemistry nerds out there, I think there's one of them. Dmanna is like a sugar, it's like a carbohydrate compound. So it binds to the E. coli in your urinary tract and then prevents the E. coli from binding to the urinary tract. So Dmanna binds to it, replaces kind of that binding site so that the E. coli can no longer bind to your urinary tract. It flushes it out. Here's a really unscientific telling of how that works. The E. coli just onto that Dmanna, and it keeps it from attaching to the walls of your urinary tract. It's very effective. It's literally saved my life. So the question was, how does it work? And does it lose efficacy over time? There are no side effects. It doesn't lose efficiency. You can take it lifelong with zero long-term side effects, which is counter to the current way that we treat UTIs, which is we give antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic, which do have long-term side effects, which do have consequences like C. diff, like antibiotic resistance. So it's a huge problem we'd be solving by using Dmanna to prevent UTIs at scale.
For anyone who knows about antibiotics, Cipro is one of the main antibiotics that's out there, and it actually causes tendons to burst. And that was Bayer's first drug that hit $1 billion. So they're not looking to back down anytime soon either. So like Sarah said, it maintains efficacy because it works directly with E. coli bacteria, which causes like 90% of UTIs.
Question back here.
Yeah, hey, great presentation. This is a pressing clinical need that's largely unmet, I agree, and obviously antibiotic resistance is a critically important concern for everyone. I have a biotech background and a pharma background, and I'm going to ask the question that is the really politically incorrect question. That is, what's your IP around this? I can buy Dmanna online right now. I can get as much as I need. I can dose anybody in my family who needs it. What is your market strategy for dealing with that open access to the compound?
It's a great question. So we kind of approached it the same way, and for 3 years waited while we were working in San Francisco, working for a company called PandaDoc. Both Sarah and I had director roles in that company. We were like, we can't wait for someone to solve this problem because buying these bags of Dmanna powder is just not efficient. And no one ever came out with a claim of how much to take. So you had some women that were taking 20 grams a day, you had some that were taking not even a gram. And so that whole range is really the biggest problem. So the first step is education. And so we've built Sarah is an amazing researcher, and we've built an amazing website that has a ton of information on it. Our goal is to enter the market with something that we didn't need IP for. Really something that we could start today, build the sales channel, build the pipeline, and then we're already iterating on a product that is going to be a little bit more IP with biophages and other things that you probably would know a little bit more about.
Yeah, I would love specifically to talk about some of the different products that we do potentially have IP around with you specifically. That'd be great. Go right here.
This is fascinating. I think it's so important. I also wanted to ask, how much does it cost to the consumer right now before insurance will kick in?
Yeah. Oh, okay. How much does it cost now to the consumer? Our packets cost $1 a day. That's a lot cheaper than some of the other Dmanna products on the market. It's not as cheap as buying it in a bulk bag. It's like if you were to buy like bulk vitamin C powder versus buying little packets of Emergency. So little packets of Emergency are going to be a little bit more expensive. They're single serving, they're single use. You don't have to like scoop it out of a bag. So the current cost is 1 packet a day, $29 a month, and we hope to get that covered by insurance because just the antibiotics that I had to take every single day to prevent UTIs were $3 a pill. That's more than like Oxy, like on the street. Like $3 a pill for an antibiotic is really expensive, and it's also not feasible to have that system of treating UTIs in places where antibiotic supply can be cut off at any moment. This is cheap, it's effective. We could sell it for 50 cents a packet in other countries. I mean, it's crazy the implications that the low cost has on how we could scale to solve this problem.
Question here.
In your asks, you talk about getting introductions to facility owners of elder care facilities. Now, my background is more in the real estate and capital markets side, and you know, there's a lot of operators in that world who are actually going sideways because they can't, you know, because of government payments and all the other stuff. How is it that, you know, have you done any studies about how much this problem costs a facility on an annualized basis? Because if you go to the private equity groups that actually are funding these real estate ventures, which is essentially what they are with an operating partner, if you can now solve a major problem for them and keep some of those facilities profitable, I think you'd find something, a very willing partner channel that would implement this quickly and, you know, would save some of those projects from going under and being sold at a discount.
Totally agree. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. When we call into these communities, we've had them report back. The studies show that 50% of everyone, men and women over the age of 60, get UTIs. When we call into these facilities, the nurses tell us it's like 95% of their elders. And UTIs, a symptom of UTIs is dementia or confusion. And so a lot of these people, you have them, all of a sudden they get confused and you go, wow, Sally was really sharp and now she's not. She probably has a UTI. And so everything from falls and people getting moved out of facilities all come from UTIs. The biggest problem, because I've cold called and talked to even Capital One's investment arm in senior living, the biggest problem is bias against the topic, to be completely honest. It's ooey. I've even had people, I've even walked up to directors and say, how many are you dealing with all the time? As soon as I mention that we're focusing on UTIs, they go, don't talk to me, talk to my medical director. And I'm like, I was talking about the financial implications of this problem, not even about the problem. But okay, so that's something we're working on pushing through, because I think there's a lot of that line that's been driven in a lot of these communities, especially the ones that we've visited in rural areas and other places. It's not a pretty sight. And so their attitude even towards the whole community is removed from an owner point of view, and the managers are usually on their way out.
Question back here.
But yeah, fines is a good point too. There's a whole list of tons of places that are getting hit just because of UTI abuse. But yeah, good point.
Yeah, so on your ask, you have elder care, retail health and wellness, as well as access to several different channels. Which of those is a priority, or which of those is the priority, and why?
The ultimate priority would be retail, because ultimately that's where everyone who can make a cognitive decision on their own is going to go to buy this. We do have urologists that are offering it and actually selling it from they're working talks to them about selling it straight from their office, because they're allowed to do that in some places. But the biggest problem is access. And so as much as we want to get into the senior care facilities, and it's just going to provide so much help for these people that are suffering and dying from this infection, there's so much red tape that we're going to have to go through. Whereas just getting in retail, I mean, for 10 years, I would go to the store and just do this and buy everything on the shelf. And in 10 years, none of those products changed. And so that would be the biggest focus, is going in retail, because people will definitely buy it.
Yeah, quick follow-up, I'm sorry.
You're loud enough, we got you.
Which retailer would be the priority?
Really convenient. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Whole Foods sells a similar product right now. It comes in a jar. It's very inconvenient to take. There are many times I've been at the airport trying to spoon this white powder into my little water bottle, and Josh comments, babe, you can't do cocaine at the airport. TSA is like right there. He's joking on me, because you'd have this, the way you buy Dmannas today is you buy it in a bag of white powder, or you buy it in a jar of white powder. Either way, it looks like drugs. So what we did is we put it in that stick pack, and for $29 you can buy the same amount of Dmanna's powder, but it's individually dosed. It makes it really easy for urologists to recommend to take every day. So I think Whole Foods, actually I know Whole Foods has the same exact product, the same exact amount of Dmanna sold in a jar for $35. If you sold this for $29 next to that product, I mean, it would crush. It's so much easier to take for the same price. So Whole Foods would be great, but we're looking smaller retailers. Anywhere you put this, it's gonna crush. I mean, like Josh said, he would go to the grocery store for me, and the products on the shelf 10 years ago, the same products, they have today. And whoever makes the Dmanna's play first is going to win, because people are wising up. It takes about 17 years for medical research to catch up to the market, to catch up to healthcare. Dmanna's started 2012 is when we saw the clinical trial. So the clock is ticking before people realize that cranberries are magic and nonsense, and Dmanna's is what actually works.
Question back here.
So my question was, you said that in the clinical trial there were no bad side effects towards it. Why is nobody doing it in the single serve packets like you're doing, and why are no bigger companies starting up with that instead of cranberries?
Yeah, because honestly, most of the companies are run by dudes. They've never had urinary tract infections. I think this problem, how we're solving this, parallels really well with how Sarah Blakely approached the Spanx market. And when she started going into these pantyhose factories and trying to design her product, she found that all the people designing our pantyhose were men. And that's why the product sucked. And all the people who've been designing our UTI products, our UTI treatments, UTI treatment and management clinically, the guidelines have not changed for 80 years. And women like me are suffering as a result. We get an infection, we get another antibiotic, we get an infection, we get another antibiotic. And eventually that cycle is going to lead to us having no antibiotics left, which is why prevention is so key. I don't know why other people haven't done it yet, other than maybe they don't understand the problem. Yeah.
The other reason is IP, like we talked about earlier. And really, their main focus is antibiotics. We're running out of them so quickly, and it takes about 10 years to bring an antibiotic to market. And so they're working right now on the next major antibiotic, not about a preventative that will actually take away from the antibiotic.
Question here.
Hi there. Thank you very much for coming in your presentation. A couple of things you mentioned earlier were people were taking Dmanna's on 1 gram, 40 grams, etc. Are people killing themselves with no education? How did you come out with your formula to say this is the 1 pack, whether it's 2 grams, 1 gram? How did you arrive to that? And who's validating that? One question. Second question is, you show a pack. Do you have scalability already? You have the means to produce millions of these things? And do you have a supply chain established and all that? I mean, or are you making them in your garage and trying to scale? Or where are you today in terms of funding and all that kind of stuff? And maybe it's a long question, we can do it offline.
No, we've been asked that before. So the first question was, how did we come up with the dosage? Well, you can take 120 grams of Dmanna's safely a day, which would be a lot, according to Canada. Canada's come out and given a guideline. I don't think the US has yet, because it just hasn't been studied. The way we arrived at 2 grams a day is we looked at the clinical studies where they used just 2 grams a day, and they found that it prevented up to 85% of UTIs. And also I had 25, 30 opportunities to iterate on this. And I'm extremely lucky, because I don't know if I'd have the insights. I don't know if I would have worked as hard to solve this problem. I don't know if the 100 customers we've helped change their lives already would even know about this product if I hadn't happened to have a chemistry degree, happened to get over 25 UTIs, and happened to be an entrepreneur who saw the need for this to get fixed. Because it's a women's issue. It's kind of one of those things that needs to be solved by a woman, because it's just so hard to wrap your head around unless you suffer from them. So we took our dosage right from the science, and brought it to market. We didn't want to overstep or overstate or make conclusions that haven't been proven in the clinical trials yet. And then the second question about how we scale and how we bring it to market. So the partnership we're working on right now is with PSafe of India. It's the largest feminine hygiene brand in India, where there's huge stigmas around menstruation, around UTIs. Certainly it's seen as a hygiene issue, it's seen as a defect. So we're working with them where they have very cheap operations where we can bring a cheap product to the Indian market and potentially then sell that in Mexico, another market that's dealing with UTIs. But still very, very early stage on all those things.
There's a question here in the front.
Yep, this will be our last question.
Oh, wow.
Possibly one more. Yeah.
My personal mantra is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I also am a huge proponent of, if I can find a supplement in lieu of an antibiotic, I'm always really glad for that. So I like what you're doing. But I know there's a lot of efficacy around ascorbic acid and vitamin C in higher doses for UTI. And I've had some personal success with that. So I'm wondering if you've explored that in your formulation as a possibility, or had any personal experience with that. because you may be missing something in your formulation, and it may add to your secret sauce or what you're doing.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and that is something that we have considered is vitamin C specifically. So the research I've reviewed backs up what you have found to be true in your own life and in my life, is that vitamin C can help add to this. The problem is to package just one substance in a packet like that, it costs a certain amount, but as soon as you start mixing powders, the price kind of skyrocket. So this version of the product solves the D-mannose access problem, and then you can buy vitamin C on top of that. And then eventually, as we scale up and we can make D-mannose plus vitamin C products very cheaply because we're at scale, that is fully what we intend to do. There's a lot of research that supports what you're saying. And I as a chemist, that was my background. I was a chemist. I was all about antibiotics. I studied antibiotics, and I thought, they are so precious to the world. They save lives. And so I was surprised myself when this D-mannose thing came out. It was huge. I was very skeptical, having the science background that I had. But I mean, it's as effective as an antibiotic, and it's completely natural, like you said. So certainly a better alternative that will help us preserve our antibiotics, our precious antibiotics, for the situations where we really need them.
Right here. Last question.
Well, no, Rick will be our last question.
Next to last question.
Last
Give it the last word.
Last
I appreciate the presentation. It was really excellent. As you were talking though, excuse me, I kept thinking, well, Dmanna, that's a natural product. That's in their body. So I did something that I'm sure all the students in the corner were doing. I Googled Dmanna. There's a Walmart ad for Dmanna pills. There's a CVS ad. And looking at the prices at half a gram, et cetera, if I multiply that times 4 to get your thing, it's less than $1, et cetera. How are you going to compete in this market?
Yeah, so we found the problem. We surveyed hundreds of UTI sufferers. So the first answer, how are we going to compete? Or there's all these products out there. They're cheap and available on Amazon. So why Dmanna? Why do we need another D-mannose product? There's so many products out there. Why did no one ever tell me about it? Why did I have to have a chemistry degree to find out about these studies? Because I was researching the clinical studies. That's how I came about it. So the problem seems not to be that an access problem in America specifically. Mexico doesn't have a D-mannose product. India is limited on D-mannose products. Africa certainly doesn't have D-mannose. They barely have antibiotics. So to answer your question, we surveyed hundreds of UTI sufferers. They all knew what Cipro was by name. They all knew what macrobid was. These are unscientific, housewives like my friends. They knew what E. coli was. They knew what antibiotic resistant E. coli was, but less than 2% of them knew what D-mannose was. So what we're trying to solve is the marketing problem for D-mannose, and we do plan on coming out with lower cost products that will help us compete in that market. This was we launched so fast, so this is solving that convenience problem, but certainly it's a great idea to have a low cost option as well.
Last question up
Yeah,
front.
very good presentation, thank you. I had 2 daughters, so I know what they go through with this. And a question on it, and getting back to what you were mentioning, have you looked at using nonprofits in regards to aid to Africa, to India, and some of the rural areas of the U.S.? And also, have you approached any pilots using, there's not a lot of them left, but I know a number of them, independent pharmacies that are in rural hubs, just to see what that would go over with that? Those are just my 2.
That's a great, that's not even just 2 cents, that's 120 cents right there. That's great. We are entrepreneurial at heart, so we came at this with self-funding, just trying to solve the problems. We knew it needed to be solved, and we are still open to nonprofits, though. We realize there's a huge benefit in that. Our entrepreneurial hearts are going to want to go straight to revenue, but certainly there are plays there. Josh, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, sure. Hands down, absolutely. It all comes down to right now, we're in a place of, like Sarah said, we self-funded this whole thing, and there's been a lot of money that's gone into this so far, and so we're looking to just get to break even, and that's where our main focus is how can we get to the fastest path to break even as possible. Getting in with nonprofits, we could do that today and help donate product, because for us right now, just getting it into the market and getting it into the hands of people that are suffering, it doesn't take long. When you're dealing with debilitating, bedridden, burning pain, and then you don't have to deal with that anymore, and everything that does for your marriage and everything else. Speaking first experience, I've dealt with UTIs firsthand through my wife for 10 years, And so to see kind of how it's even helped us in our marriage and even to counsel other people through that, because frankly, it's just a very uneducated topic, even among doctors. Even what they read in textbooks is outdated and wrong in a lot of cases for how to treat UTIs. But yes.
Did you guys get married in middle school? If you've been married for 10 years?
We weren't exactly,
No comment.
Okay.
Yeah, we met in college, Jim.
Yes, that's right. All right, guys, thank you so much. As always, I'm grateful for the companies that trust